Okay, today we're going to do a lesson on value. Value is the lightness or darkness of a color. So we're going to work on our value lesson by using watercolors as our paint. So I have just regular markers right here, and we're going to draw a really simple scene with my markers. So I'm going to do some grass, and I'm not going to color it in all the way, but I am going to color it in a little bit at the top. And then I'm actually going to put in the second color. You can do whatever scene or design that you want to do. It does not have to look like anything. If you wanted to do something that was just kind of like some shapes and, different kinds of lines and designs, I'm going to do a tree. And then because it's fall, I'm going to do some kind of bunches of different fall colors for my leaves. So when we're talking about value, we're talking about how something looks, and kind of like if like how dark it is or how light it is compared to other things in the picture. So right now my grass has a pretty dark value because it's a really dark green. The leaves on my tree are going to be kind of a mixed value because there's some light and some dark. I think that's good. And I'm going to put some dark brown. So this will be a darker value for my tree. And I'm going to make some little bunches of grass. So once again, this is kind of a dark value. And these flowers are kind of like a medium value. So they're kind of in between dark and light. All right, I'm going to do some clouds. And I'm actually going to color in like around the clouds, and you'll see why in a second. I'm going to leave the clouds white. And any kind of regular marker would work. The only thing that won't work for this is something like a Sharpie, because that's permanent. So any kind of like Crayola markers or, any other kind of brand, all that will work. All right, so I'm going to take my brush. So I just have like a regular paintbrush here. You can use any type of paintbrush that you have, and just my regular cup of water. And I'm going to start to add water over my marker, and you'll see how it's starting to almost turn into watercolor. It's kind of a way that we do like homemade watercolor when we're at home and we don't have our paint sets at school. And once this dries, you can really see that change in like a dark value and a lighter value. And you can kind of see how the marker is almost like bleeding into the paper. So like I said, you can do any kind of drawing you want. I did like a fall scene, but if you just want to do some shapes or, like a space scene, like heart, stars and planets, anything you want to do is fine. Just make sure you're kind of adding enough water to really make that watercolor marker, really kind of start to move. So the reason that we do this is that it kind of enhances and really creates that differentiation between light and dark by adding the water to it. You see like the very light areas, and then you see these darker areas where the color was. So it's a nice contrast in value when we're adding the water to it. Um, Once I'm done adding my water, I will let my painting dry and then I'll show you the final result on the assignment so you can see kind of what they look like once they're done. Add some to the flower too. So the reason I did it around the clouds is I want the clouds to stay white, but I want the blue to kind of start to fade out a little bit more into the sky. And you can add as much marker as you want to this paper and then add the water on top of it and kind of see how you can fill up the paper. So that inside of the cloud will stay like a nice light value, and then the outside of the cloud will start to kind of have this like darker value and then fade into the white again. So the sky will become like a little bit of blue and then have a little bit of white. So you can already see my stems here are starting to kind of bleed out. So there's a dark value where I drew the stem, and then it's starting to fade into a lighter value as the water is seeping into the paper. All right, so I will show my picture once it's all dry, and then you can see what the final result looks like. All right, have fun.